Hi, everyone. Here I am with Coco Rosenblatt-Farrell. Coco, I'm so happy to have you on and have you here.
I'm so excited to be here, Emily. I'm really, really excited. Since I first met you, I've been thinking, wow, what a kindred spirit. And so it's just to
Yeah,
be like not exactly face to face, but
we're
yeah,
more
to
meeting.
be
Yeah, we're on
together.
video. Great. How Coco and I met is through Radical Embodiment, and she was actually the domain owner of radicalembodiment.com. And I, I don't know if you got my letter first or phone call. I don't know.
I
I
think I got something, and then all of a sudden there were all these other ways. I'm like, oh my
yeah.
God. And then she emailed me too, and she called me, and like, oh my
Yeah, I
God,
tracked Coco down.
you trapped me.
I sent her snail mail, and that's how we connected. So we'll dive more into kind of that radical embodiment piece here in just a moment. But I'd like to start the conversation with what embodiment means to you.
Okay. Yeah, I love that question. It's embodiment, I feel like has been a major part of my human journey this lifetime. So it's important to me. And I think that when I think about embodiment, I think, on the most basic level, we're all embodied, right? We're
Yeah.
all in a form here. And I think that for a lot of my life, I was in my body, but not necessarily really present in my body and or conscious in my body. And sometimes maybe I even felt like I was even in a body, but kind of out someplace else. And so for me, embodiment really means presence in my body, like being able to, like in your book, you talk about it's like there's a difference between thinking about your body and being
Mhm.
in your body. So I can think about my body, but really embodiment means to me to have conscious presence. Like I can bring my awareness into the inside of my body. I can feel all the things that are happening in here. And there's also a piece of feeling enlivened. So I mean there's awareness, but awareness is not necessarily it's not necessarily juicy. And I think for me there's a certain juiciness in embodiment that has to do with, feeling the pleasure of what lights me up, what enlivens me, what gets me like moving and yeah, feeling really juicy. So it's this kind of combination, I guess, of presence in, awareness of, and the pleasure of, yeah, being alive.
I love that. What a great succinct. I'm going to repeat that. So the combination of the presence in awareness of and pleasure of aliveness.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I concur.
Yay.
What a great definition.
Mm,
Um,
thank you.
and so from that, I'd like to then even expand to radical embodiment.
Yeah,
So again, just to clarify, so you own that domain for like 15 years,
I did.
and
Yes,
you would used to host workshops called
I
radical
did.
embodiment.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, go ahead. Go
I
ahead.
just would love, yeah, to just hear about that work and what you were offering and more just like what that meant to you.
Yeah, I would love to share. So my background's in education. I used to teach little people, feeling like, wow, if we can start our little people out with like a really great sense of like embodiment and joy and, all the good things, then that's where I wanted to put my attention. And then as I had my own child, I was home for a while, and I just started feeling, I had this really amazing experience at my cousin's wedding, actually, and it was all her really amazing friends. We all got together for this weekend of ritual, and just there was space for everybody to be exactly how they were and who they were in that moment. And I left that weekend feeling like I really needed, I wanted to create a community of women for women, so that we could be together and explore these things that were really important to me, like being in a body and how do we communicate to the outside world, and all the things I knew I wasn't alone probably in wanting. And so I started something called Women Awake, and it went on for some years, and we met regularly every week, and it was a beautiful experience. And inside of that experience, I started noticing that there was another layer that I wanted to really dive into, and that was this body piece. And so I started out with something that I called reclaiming your body. And I did some online things back in the day. It was kind of old school because I'd actually put up posters around town but and then have these in-person retreats and workshops and ongoing classes online. And there was something that and so I loved making up names to reflect the projects that I was in. And so at some point radical embodiment kind of came to me, and it felt both personal and even bigger than that. There was this for me, the kind of embodiment that I was going for, the pleasurable, really in here feeling it all, that was so different than how I had been brought up to be. So just radical in that sense, the idea that I could actually be in here and I could enjoy it and
Yeah.
have pleasure. That really, like, how I want to hold myself and think about myself is really, it's my choice. It doesn't have to do with anybody else at all. That was so radical to me. That was just, and there's another layer of how do I not just accept and love this body and be in this body when it's like behaving as I was taught to, like, it's behaving. What if it's like no matter what? What
Yeah.
if it's no matter what? What is, you know, growing up Catholic, I was really, there were a lot of mysteries that I didn't get, and the nuns would be sort of get annoyed with me after a while, be like, take it on faith, and then after a while I don't know. I was just like, well, those mysteries aren't that all that interesting. But the mystery that is really interesting to me is unconditional love. I just didn't get how I could love the things outside of myself that were hard to love, but also the part of the things inside me that I was taught not to love, or that, weren't acceptable. So the idea of loving my body, being in my body, being connected with my body, and loving my body no matter what it looks like, no matter what it feels like, no matter what's moving through, that was what I wanted for myself. And that was what I wanted to share the possibility of with other people. And in the last thing I'll say about radical embodiment to me is that it's also, it's a little bit of a political piece too, because I feel like in my own discovery of radical embodiment, the more I am present, the more I can feel what's happening inside of my whole system, body and mind, the more I am sovereign. And I just feel like for a lot of my life, I participated in this sort of patriarchal, capitalistic situation where I would consume and do things because I was not enough, or I was too much of this or too much of that. And really, like, being out of my body, it's really, or like only in my head or whatever, it's really hard to navigate a world that's throwing lots of messages, right?
Yeah.
So I feel like part of, for me, radical embodiment is actually a political statement of, this is my body. No one can tell me what I need to do with it, or how I need to fix it. You can try, but the more I'm in my body, the less at the effect of that I am, the less susceptible I am to participating in the very structures that want to tell me that I'm not good enough just the way I am. So it was
Yes.
like really, yeah, it's a lot there, but
Yeah, 1000%. I agree. And I love what you just said of too. And I so strongly believe that the more we can choose, and it is a choice, it's a courageous choice, but it's a continuous choice. It's not just like, oh, I went to this embodiment workshop and now boom, I'm embodied. No, it's a daily continuous choice to choose to live more from in our body. But the
yes,
more we do that, the more we are sovereign, the more we are more clear on what we need, on what we want, we're not so easily swayed by advertisements or
exactly.
political agendas or whatever else. Yeah.
Yep,
Yeah.
exactly. I think it's very, very powerful. Yeah. So I'm really glad to have just bequeathed over the name that to you, because it just feels like you're really running with it, and it's such a powerful thing. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's like it's taking back the power that's already in us,
Yeah.
but that somehow it's easy to be convinced of that it's not there. And there was one thing that you were saying about the choice. I feel like that's really important. And
Mhm.
like you said, it's not just a one-time thing. Okay, I'm going to go to workshop and now I'm embodied. It's a daily, it's a moment to moment, I think,
Yeah,
choice.
I agree.
um, which is on one hand a really big responsibility. I think
Mhm.
it's a
Mhm.
powerful and responsibility, but it is a big responsibility. And the beautiful thing is that in each moment we have this ability to choose anew for ourselves in a way that really supports our aliveness and our well-being. So it's always, for as many minutes we get, they're all new moments to invite ourselves into more love.
Yes. And it can happen in that moment. You can shift. And
Yes.
it's not
Yep.
like through a way of just trying to override your mind or overpower, just think positive. It's the
No,
choice of coming down and within.
exactly.
And what you said earlier about like power, that it's also, it's uncovering, it's not even it's uncovering a little bit. It's uncovering, I think, more the conditioning we've had, but
Yes.
it's connecting to our power that we have been trained and told that we need to go out, like outsource, or that we need to
Exactly.
diffuse because it's too much. So it's bringing it back into containment.
Yes.
Um, Love that. You're my radical embodiment sister.
Yes,
That's what
yes,
I just decided. I was.
yes. I love
um, so I'm just going to read a brief little blurb from your
Mhm,
bio because it's
mhm.
so beautifully written, and then I'd love for you to just speak on it and speak on your journey and kind of healing from it. So
Sure.
Coco shares in her bio that with early and ongoing exposure to body negativity, as well as immersion in the diet culture, Coco worked for many years to unwind the familial, religious, and societal conditioning that had shaped her relationship with herself, her body, her sexuality, and food, ultimately leading her to discover a deep and abiding love for her body, or what she calls her sacred garment.
Yes. Yeah, thank you. Mm. Yeah, so would you just like me to speak a little
Yeah,
bit?
I realize there's not a question of that, but yeah, just what I would love for you to share of being that, yeah, like what was it for you, or a little of your own journey of coming from that conditioning,
Yeah.
and maybe if there was a specific moment or story that you have around, feeling like your, body was negative, or the diet culture, and kind of how you started to move beyond that to
Yeah.
really seeing and experiencing your body as a sacred garment versus negative or wrong.
Yes. Yes. I love that.
We're trying to, I like it you named earlier. I don't mean to interject and then I'll let you speak, but of also just thinking our body, like only loving our body if it's behaving a certain way.
Right.
And
Right.
I think that, I mean, I don't know for you, but for me, I think that my body has to behave, or I need to behave a certain way, comes a lot from my Catholic upbringing and being a good girl, and my
Not
body
for
must behave well.
that.
I must behave well.
Yes, be
Um,
the good girl. Be a good girl. Yeah.
yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'd love to speak to that. So I guess, I mean, I really don't remember a time. I guess I should say some of my earliest memories are around my body and how it was uh like not okay.
Mm.
Um early on, I know I remember myself as very physical. I loved being outside, um and also I was very aware of, my mom and the culture that she was participating in, of the diet culture. And there's a particular I think, I don't know, I feel like it's kind of both religious and societal, that this thing about the lower body. I think that I learned early, like my lower body was like a dangerous thing. And I think that's the religious piece coming in. Um, you know, like this, the sexual energy and, um, yeah, just like that was a dangerous place. And it was better for me to sort of transcend and be like up here where like everything's makes sense and it could be really neat and orderly and stuff, and move away from that like dangerous, prone to sin lower body. And also like there was just this big focus on making that part of my body, or seeing my, the women in my life, wanting to make that as small as possible, like somehow hips, booty, thighs, like all of that needs to be like small, usually dressed in black to camouflage and make look thinner, so from a very, very early age I remember all these things. And then, but for me, a big piece of when I shifted into a lot more like negativity was going to Catholic school, leaving this like little public school where I got to wear my flare jeans and my sneakers and do cartwheels, and we had a climbing gym in the classroom, and or like
Oh,
a
cool.
structure. It was super cool. And I was like
Wow.
on that thing. And then all of a sudden that school closed. And that summer I got taken down to the,
You know how old you were at
I
this?
was 6. I
Six.
was
Okay.
6, and I got taken down um, to the uniform store, and I had to trade in my little like bell bottoms and my sneakers for a skirt that I could no longer do cartwheels in. I had to wear these like brown ugly shoes. It was just like really nasty. But one of the big things that happened is like I'm all of a sudden in a Catholic school room, and right above, the blackboard is this picture of Jesus, who I was told in no uncertain terms was up there because of me and my like badness, he died
Mm.
for me, and I'm 6, so that's kind of a, I don't know if everybody was as sensitive to that message, but I know like I was like, oh shit, like I didn't ask for this, like I didn't ask for anybody to die for me and then have to spend my whole life, beating myself up and making myself better. So that was a really huge thing. And then as that was at 6, and then the next few years, I got my period really early. I was, I think, just about to turn 10. It was a couple of months before my birthday. So, my body started changing a little bit. My mom was really sick, so I think I was leaning into food also as like a friend, because at that point, I think maybe it would be different now, but at that point back then, there wasn't as much emphasis on when a parent is sick, like how are the kids doing? Like let's maybe have an eye on them. So we were just all in survival mode, and I think part of me was just like, I really liked macaroni and cheese, like cover my world with melted cheese and everything will feel good for a little bit, of time. And so this combination of, this man who's up there on a cross, bloody, is dead because of me. My body's a girl body, and girl bodies are dangerous. It's also a kind of growing girl body that has a little bit extra on it. Maybe I'm getting ready for my period. Maybe I'm eating macaroni and cheese. But regardless, it's like, oh no, like I'm like, how do I be here? Like, how do I be in this situation? Um,
Mm.
so I think I tried to like, sort of coerce myself into losing weight and all, and that went on for a really long time, for most of my life. Um, and until during adulthood, when I was suffering so much with this really negative view of myself and my body, just really trying to tame my body in any way I possibly could. So doing whatever, diet, bulimia, laxatives, like whatever I could find, and a lot of times I found them in magazines, like 17 magazine was a perfect place to find ways, like they would do this thing on so and so has anorexia, and I'd be like, okay, what's she doing to, like,
Right. Yeah.
um and so that was like hard. And at
Yeah.
some point, that kind of holy grail for unconditional love, I'm like, how do I do that? Because I think that's the key here, because it hurts too much to live like this, live hating on
Mhm.
myself,
Mm.
having internalized these things from other sources that aren't
From
really healthy
such a
sources,
young
from
age.
such a young age, from such a
Yeah.
young age. So, um, I went through high school and college. I met my college sweetheart, who I'm married to. We've been together for 36 years. So he's
Wow.
definitely witnessed this. And really a big turning point came for me in terms of health was after I had our child, Tahila, and I was I had gained a lot of weight in the pregnancy, and afterwards I'm like, I'm going to go to Weight Watchers. I'm going to get this weight off. And so I did, and I went for like, I don't know, maybe I was going for like 8 months, and would go to the meeting and get pep talk. But before the meeting or after, I can't remember. I think it was before the meeting. We get weighed, and so I would stand in a line, and I would go, and I would get weighed, and depending on the number, and this was true because there were like four scales. It felt true for everybody. The number would make the difference between whether somebody had a good day or not. It was,
Yes. Oh,
the people weighing would say, "Oh, good girl. You lost 2 pounds this week. That's fantastic." And it would be like, "Woohoo!" The shouts would go up. And then, for the times when I didn't, or oh well, maybe next time. But it's like, oh
that
gosh,
makes my heart break.
it
Yeah.
was right. And
Because they're making these and I feel like that languaging and framework around weight in that way it's like making a judgment on your character
yes.
based on a number on a scale, based
Yep.
on did you lose 2 pounds or not? And if not, then you've it's starting that shame.
Oh, it totally, totally is. And, I think that the people who were weighing we're all in the same system, right? We're just reinforcing it for
Totally.
each other. And,
Yeah.
the truth is like some would say Weight Watchers might even have a healthier approach than in terms of, but it's all kind of the same feeling. And there was one point when I think maybe Noah would usually, have our child when I would go, or like, I would go by myself. And this one time I was carrying in arms my baby,
Mhm.
and I'm standing in line, and I'm watching, all the five women in front of in my line go and either be like cheered on, or, patted on the back, you can do better. And I just was watching it. And all of a sudden, I think it was because I had my baby, I was watching it from a different
Mm.
angle. And I
Mm.
thought, oh no, oh no, 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 no. This is the last of this. I'm not doing this. I'm not, even if my
Mm.
baby doesn't come with me again, or doesn't even remember being in arms watching people get weighed, I just can't participate anymore. So whatever is going to happen, I'm out of here. And I took my baby and I walked around and walked, and that
Wow.
was the last I did of that. Um, and then I think that, I was not dieting, but then cleanses came along, or like be healthy. And I could see that really underneath, that was still a diet mentality. So I just, but I kept peeling back and like peeling it, and like, becoming more aware. And then the piece about the sacred garment and how that really shifted. My mom was really, I mean, she was so wonderful and an incredible person, and was just, in this realm too of dieting, and my body's, my booty's too big, and my whatever. And at one point I actually had a conversation with her, and I said, because it started to occur to me that, being in the diet culture, like there's a payoff to it. And there's probably several, but the one I'm thinking of is this connection that a lot of times connection between women, family, it's like it rests on this kind of like we're all in it together. Isn't that so
Yeah.
hard? Like, aren't we just so fat and like, can't we do, all this and
Mhm.
just being and I thought to myself, wow, I don't want to participate, but I want to feel connected with my mom. And one of the ways that we connect is like we diet together.
Mhm.
And so I had a conversation where I said, Mom, I know it's really it's my choice and it's up to me, but I kind of could feel like having just a little bit of permission, or like you saying like it's okay if I don't do this anymore. It's okay. And I'll still be part of the club or some club, but
Mhm.
it's like okay to like not have this be the focus of my life forever. It's okay to really love my body. And she was beautiful about it because she said, I
Mhm.
really would love that for you. I'm not sure how to do that, but like, yes, blessings on you. That sounds like a good thing. So,
That
um,
makes me just like tear up. Like, what a beautiful moment. And like, to me, it's beautiful and sad. Like, sad of like how many women, and I mean, not just women, people in general. I know particularly for women, it's, I think, been more historically harsh on our weight.
yep.
And that story that you shared is such a potent story that I'm sure so many can relate to, of getting on the scale, whether at a Weight Watchers meeting or at home. And that's going to be the deciding factor of if you're going
Yep.
to have a good day or a bad day.
Yep.
Um, I wanted to share a brief little story of, I did a book signing when my book came out, and talk here in Boulder at the local store, the Boulder bookstore. And I didn't talk at all. I mean, talked about my book, but I didn't talk about like scales and weighing yourself or not
Mhm.
weighing yourself. And one of my clients was at the talk, and I happened to see her the week following, and she's in her mid 70s. And the week after the talk, when I saw her, she shared that she weighs herself every day, every morning, and has for years, for over 10 years,
Mhm.
and kind of beats herself up based on her weight. And she's like, after that talk, she's like, I haven't weighed myself since.
Wow.
And then I saw her like a month or two later, and she told me she threw away her scale.
Oh
Because,
my God, I
you
have
know,
chills.
yeah, it made me so, I was just so proud of her that that's also what she took from her interpretation of what she decided to do for herself, of realizing like, me just weighing myself every morning isn't doing anything supportive to my health. Instead, it's making me mean to myself
Yeah.
and harsh and she's at a very, she's a healthy weight. She's a healthy woman. And to, yeah. So I just wanted to just
Yeah.
share that little
Oh,
snippet too.
I love that. And I love that. I mean, two things. One is that weight, I mean, maybe for some people a scale is just information, but with any kind of a history, it's a pretty dicey thing, I
Mhm.
think. And to me, this goes to embodiment too, because a number on a scale it's a number. It's like it's
Mhm.
abstract. Um, but how I feel in my body. Now
Yeah.
that's the thing. And sometimes I could not feel good in my body. And then, but at least I'm in there to know, oh, I'm not feeling so great today, whatever. Maybe it was this, maybe it was that. How can I take care of myself today?
Mhm.
There's so much more information available from the body itself that is,
Totally. And it's an inquiry versus
yeah,
like a very strict judgment.
yes,
Um,
yes.
of I'm right or I'm wrong. Instead, it's like, I'm not feeling so great right now. What is that about? Or what could I choose that might support me in feeling a little better?
Exactly. And I think I mean, that the other thing what I was going to just say is like, go
Mhm.
70 something year old woman. It's never too late, right? It's never too late to feel even better, in our
Mhm.
bodies and about our bodies. So I love that, you have a
Yeah.
something year old client and that's just
So
huge.
proud. Like, it's huge.
It
It's
really
a
is.
big step.
It really
Yeah.
is. And I think that I have a lot of empathy because I've been there and compassion for how hard it can be to be in a body, certainly in this culture. And it's
Mhm.
certainly if, I mean, there's like you've said in your book, there's lots of reasons to not be in a body. There's the messaging that it's dangerous to be, it's better to transcend and be this spiritual person, or there's trauma, or there's illness sometimes. Like it can be hard to be in a body, but to
Yeah.
me, I feel like the hardest thing in being in a body is better than not. You know, the hardest thing I'm going to have to deal with in being in this body is, yeah, it's better than the suffering of not having, you know, lived into myself as fully as the opportunity has presented itself. So,
Mm. Well, and I feel like you have such experience with that. I'm going to segue now, if you don't mind sharing of your experience through cancer and
mhm.
how you really moved into being even more in your body. And I think it's from what you, when you said this earlier, I was like, it's what I went to, when your body isn't behaving how you want it to behave or
Yes,
doing, like
yes,
still choosing to love it. So,
yep.
do you mind just sharing a little of that story
No,
and
and
experience?
I would love to. And I wanted to say about the sacred garment thing because that was,
Yeah.
I'll just connect that. My mom in 2015 um, went in for a big surgery of her heart when I was little and I mentioned she was sick. It was her heart. And so she went in for the surgery and she made it through, but about 4 days after she ended up dying. And I was with her in that process. And it was, I mean, it's just a big time. It's like, wow, mortality and my mom and like this, you know, this person I adore is leaving. And that was its own story and an incredible experience. But when she died and I was with her body, I just had so much, I thought of all the years that my sweet mom had attempted to tame her body according to what she thought was the right thing to do. And yet here's this body that's like really what it was her way of loving the world. Like it's the thing she loved the world through. It's the thing that she was loved through by the world and the people in her life. And I just saw it. I just saw it. Like I saw it for what it was. Like, oh my God, this is this beautiful gift of a form for this whatever temporary engagement. And when I saw that, when I saw her, I just thought, oh my God, there was the part at the Weight Watchers, but then there was, I'm not wasting any more time not loving my body, any more time. I'm done. That's it.
Mm.
And I'm sorry that my mom, wasn't around to like get the lesson with me because she was gone, but it was really profound. And I looked at her and I was like, that is her sacred garment. And this is mine, this
Yeah.
is mine. And so when in 2019, I was like, I had been doing all this great work. I'm like, wow, I'm really loving on myself, especially the places that I've hated on the most, which are really just the places that have held the most of my pain for me. Um,
Mm.
I'm just like, I was just in such a great place. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, I think I'm like the healthiest person I know, and I get diagnosed with breast cancer. And
Mm.
that was just, it was so shocking. And I looked around at the world, and the thing was like, kick cancer's ass. And I totally get that. It's like having something that could kill you in your body, in my body. It's like, yeah, it's like, I don't want to have that, and I can understand the impulse. However, I had just worked so hard to make this body a sanctuary for myself that I knew I couldn't take the battle energy in. Like I didn't want to lay down and die, but I couldn't take the battle energy in. And I thought, okay, well, if I don't have a choice about whether I have breast cancer right now, because it's here,
Mhm.
I at least have a choice of how I want to be in relationship to having breast cancer. And I
Mm.
thought to myself, you know what? I really want to love my way through this. I want to, whatever the outcome, it's not like if I love my way through, maybe I'll survive better, or if I like, but I'm going to love my way through because that's how I want to use whatever time I have left. If this is like my exit, my soon to exit this world, I want to enjoy as fully. I want to be in my body in pleasure. I want to have my heart open and undefended. I want to feel the love that's in me and around me.
Mm.
I want to get through this with my community. I want to learn how to ask for help and receive it, and know that I'm worthy of that, and that I'm somebody that, like, the people who love me, they want me to be here, and they want to help. And so I just really opened up my heart, and it was, I I gave myself room for my feelings. I was really transparent about my journey. I called in a circle of love around me, which was incredible. And after like all this time of coming to love my body just as it is, then, with all its, my own personal unique form, all of a sudden it's going to be really changed,
Yeah.
And so um, there was also that piece of like how to, but I was so committed to loving every part of me. And even this cancer, it was like the cancer was just doing what cancer does. And I needed to have it removed. And that was going to really radically change my body. And so I just really opened up to, I'd never had cancer. I was all like, I'm a natural, like, I'm so natural. I would, I'm just going to go flat. I'm going to learn to love my body just as it is, because that's what I'm about. And at some point, my surgeon kept saying, I really think you should consider reconstruction. I really do. I think you would be perfect for it. You love your curves. I can do what's called a nipple and skin sparing mastectomy, which is kind of a cutting edge thing that because the cancer was inside the breast tissue rather than like on the surface, she's like, I can save more of your body, and then you can have your curves. And I really do love my curves. So
Yeah.
to myself, the most kind thing I can do for myself, given that I've never been in a situation like this, is to give myself all the possible options and like let go, or sort of like unwind this idea of myself that I have, that I should do it a certain way again, right? Like this is, and so I decided on reconstruction. And I'm really glad that I did. I'm really enjoying myself and my boobs.
Yeah.
And just, it's easy. Like I can wear the same clothes. I don't have to worry about a prosthetic popping out. I feel healthy, and
Mhm.
I'm taking the best care of myself that I can.
Mhm.
Um, and I'm continuing to love my way through my life, because yeah, that's the thing I also really got, is that this is the moment, this is it. There's nothing more guaranteed. Like this
That's
could
so
be this could be the last moment. So I'm
true.
I'm here for it, here for it
Mm.
as fully as I can be, with as much love for myself as possible. And I think that kind of just spills out to, the world, I think. So
I'm sure. I
yeah.
am sure. I am sure. And I love how you named and shared too of when you made the choice of, I'm going to love my way through this, the awareness and intention you had of regardless of what happens, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That you were like, that is how you were consciously choosing to be in that experience and how you continue to be.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. So it
And
was really a cool experience.
you're
Yeah,
writing a book
I am. I am. I am writing
called
a book.
Loving My Way Through. Is that
Yes,
right? Yeah.
exactly. Exactly. That started to be the working title for it. Excuse me. I Yeah, and it feels like the right title, because it really does, there might be like a little undertitle, but it feels like the thing. And I really, so I had this very magical experience where I had closed my coaching practice after the cancer diagnosis. I just felt like, yeah, it was time for me to just, yeah, focus on myself a little bit. And I wasn't quite sure what I was going to do. And I had these 4 mornings in the bed. I won't tell it the long way, but ultimately 4 mornings in a row, I was woken at 4:30 in the morning, and with an impulse to write. And I was just so cozy in my bed, and my honey's still sleeping. And I'm like, I'm not getting up at 4:30, and I don't know what I'm going to write anyway. 4 times in a row. I guess I'm kind of stubborn about not getting out of bed too early. But anyway, on the fourth morning, I had that same impulse. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to get up, and I'm just going to lay here and like, what am I here to do next? I don't know. Like, what am I going to use some of my time for, my energy? And at that moment in my head, it came as a goddess, and she's like, Coco, 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 I've gotten you up. I've nudged you 4 mornings in a row to get up and write. And what do? You lay in bed and you're like, what should I do? Like, what am I here to do now? And
Mm.
And so that morning I got up and I sat at my kitchen table, old school, with paper and pen, and out flew this an outline. And when my husband got up, he's like, "What happened in here?" And I said, "This." And he said, "I'm going to type this in." And I really thought that it was going to be this slim volume, a guidebook for loving your way through breast cancer, something that I might have wished that I had. And but then it started coming out, and it was actually personal, and it was about growing up Catholic and the holy grail of unconditional love, and then being
Mm.
diagnosed and just really not wanting to give up that unconditional love no matter what. And so then voila, I've been writing this book, and I just this past week finished chapter 25, and I'm really
Congratulations.
excited.
That's a lot of chapters.
It's a lot of chapters. It's a lot of chapters, and I feel like the majority of the book is written. So
Wow.
I I just really am like, I'm just writing it. I'm not even worried about what happens. But the closer I get, I'm starting to feel a little excitement, like, I'm excited to share this with the world, because I don't think loving one's way through is limited to facing cancer. It's like
Yeah,
anything. And I'm taking
totally.
myself with me, and, you know,
Beautiful.
so
Thank
yeah,
you for writing the book and for sharing that. And just, I think it's an important perspective to continue to share and offer, right? Whether somebody is going through cancer or whatever is happening, right? Even how you shared now, it's just making that consistent daily choice of you're going to love your way through this.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I love that. I'm
Mhm.
going to do for today. I'm going to just love my way through this
Yeah. Oh,
cold, windy Monday.
yes, I know. I mean, that, like, when you say it, when I hear you say that, it feels so good. And
Mm.
it feels like this opportunity for just so much creativity. And like, what does loving your way through a cold and wintry day in Boulder look like? Like, what could that look
Right.
like? And of course, we all have, you know, there's certainly a lot of, in my story, there's a lot of privilege of
Mhm.
being able to have even access to medical care, and just the resources that I've had. And there's there's a lot of different situations out there, but I think even to whatever extent somebody can, that question of like, how can I love my way through this moment,
Yeah.
this day, this hard thing, this beautiful thing. It's
Mhm.
just such an opportunity for creativity and pleasure and yumminess.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So much
I'm
yumminess
the
and pleasure. I
favorite.
agree. Because even you just saying that distinguish, like, of if I was loving my way through this, cold, windy day versus just being in this cold, windy day, what came up as you were talking was distinctly different internally, which, like,
Ooh,
loving my way through was so much more sensation based. I mean, it was
yep.
much more embodied. I feel like loving your way through is a great, beautiful pathway to embodiment, to and more sensation, more connection,
Mm.
more pleasure and aliveness versus otherwise my head was just more of like, okay, what do I need to accomplish today and what needs to get done? Which just feels more flat.
Yeah. Yep. It does. And it's more like maybe getting through, rather than, it's sort of
Yes.
like the difference between surviving and thriving,
Yes.
Like, I can
Yes.
get through this day and do my things, but like,
But
what?
does that fulfill me and does that feel good? Yeah.
Right, right.
Yeah.
And I think that pleasure is for me anyway, it's a really nice access point. And it can be for people who, like us, growing up with like the Catholic Church saying certain things are sinful and stuff. I think that pleasure can also be problematic. It's vulnerable. It's maybe pushing up against, conditioning that says pleasure is not good or whatever. But for me, I find it's a really nice access point into my body. Like, what feels good? Like, maybe it's just like a little bit of softness there on my arm from myself, even. It's like, oh, feels so good. And that's just, I think, it's a lovely way to start to bring myself in more.
Totally. Totally. So I always like to ask this question, and maybe what we were just talking on is your answer. I don't know, but kind of as we wrap up, I'd love to know your number one main takeaway for anyone who wants to live a more radically embodied life?
That's such a great question. Such a great question, Emily. Mm. Well, I think like really starting with the now moment. I like I said, my two meetings with mortality in the way of being with my mom through her death, and being facing my own potential shortened timeline of mortality with cancer. I really feel like it's important to remember that this is a temporary engagement. It's not going to
Mhm.
last forever. And this is really the only moment that we know we have. And there's a lot of beauty in the moment if we can be here in it. And that it's very different from diet culture, because diet culture will be like, for the next month, I'm going to not eat this, and I'm going to not eat this, and I'm going to plan it. And the truth is like, even after you finish that month of dieting or whatever, you ultimately you're still going to have to come back into this moment and make decisions. And if I'm in this moment, can I make decisions in this precious moment that I don't know how many more I have? Can I make the decision to love myself in this moment? And what does that look like? It could be something like really small, just making space for a feeling that I have, instead of being like, I shouldn't feel like that. Be like, oh, honey,
Yeah.
what's that about? So I guess really coming into this moment and choosing. I know any kind of beautiful transformations I've had in my life always come out of a place of self-loving rather than self-loathing. So
Mhm.
yeah, I would say grab the moment and
I
love
love
yourself
that.
through it.
Yeah, because it is, I mean, that is our only guarantee, is this moment.
Yes,
And to
it
lean
really is
into
true.
that through that perspective of loving your way through is a beautiful lens. Yeah.
Mm, thank you.
Yeah, you're so welcome. Thank you
Oh,
so much, Coco. What an honor. What a sweet
mm,
treat. My
oh,
radical embodiment, kindred
yes.
sister
Oh my
spirit.
goodness. Such a pleasure to be with you. I just feel so lucky that our paths cross like this. I just really feel like, yeah, a great kinship with you. And it's
Yeah,
such a
me too.
pleasure. You're such a beautiful, radiant, brilliant person. And I'm just delighted to be in your presence. So
Thank you,
thanks for having
Coco.
me on. Mm.
Yeah. And how can any listeners who are wanting to find out more about your work, or if they were maybe touched
Yeah.
by, something you shared, where can they connect with you?
Sure. So I don't at the current moment, I just put my old website on private because it's old. And so what I'm doing right now is writing this book. And so I just put up an Instagram page that's for loving my way through. I think it says loving my
Mhm.
way through. And so it doesn't really have anything, but I'm kind of inspired, having done that I might start doing things about, as I'm finishing up this book, and like what it's
Yeah.
about. But so people could feel free to find me on Instagram. And there's also the messaging piece. So I'm really open if somebody had a question or just wanted to connect, to message me. And yeah,
Awesome.
I just enjoy that. So
Thank you for offering that. And I'll have Coco's handle linked so you can find it and see how it's spelled and everything in the show notes.
perfect. Oh,
Awesome.
so much.
Well, it's been a delight. I feel inspired personally to just be a little slower and more intentional in in the moment,
Mm,
especially through today. So I'm feeling really grateful for that reminder, for that perspective. And I think that would be my takeaway for anyone listening, of just making the choice, even if you can't really get to love yet, just making that choice of, I am going to choose to love my way through this. I'm going to and just keeping coming to that. And I think you'll be surprised of how that invites your heart to come into your experience more.
so beautifully said. Thank you so much, sweetheart. It's been so wonderful to be with you. This has been really fun.
Oh,
Yeah.
good. It was fun for me. Awesome. All right. Thanks so much, everyone, for listening, and take care.
Mm.